and qualifications in the field of construction.
You're not muted, but we are not hearing you.
Can you hear me?
Okay.
Are you hearing Dapo?
Yes, we are hearing you.
Okay. So, like I said, he's well versed in construction field, in real estate, in finance, and in management. He obtained his B.Sc in quantity surveying from the Obafemi Awolowo University, prestigious Obafemi Awolowo University in Nigeria, and he followed this quickly with an MBA in construction and real estate from the University College of Estate Management in Reading, United Kingdom. And then he's further pursued a Master's of Law degree in Construction Law and Arbitration from the Robert Gordon University in Scotland. He's a distinguished member of many professional bodies, quite a number. He's a fellow of the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors, RICS. He's a fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Quantity Surveyors, NIQS. He's a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators. He's an FCIArb. And in addition, he holds a PMP. He's a project management professional, and then other professionals that he's also targeting. He's a well-read man, and I know that eventually he'll become a professor, which is what I believe is one of his targets. In addition to his credentials and experience, he serves on the RICS board as an APC counselor and an assessor. He also holds the esteemed position of chairman of the Nigerian Quantity Surveyors in Qatar. He's a distinguished chairman. His passion for professional development is unwavering. I've worked with him and I've served. I won't say I've worked under him, but I mean, to be modest, I've actually worked under him. We worked in the same unit in ESD. He was very sound. I mean, he's a very sound and very, very detailed professional. So I'm sure a lot of us will gain from what he will present to us today. So please get ready as I welcome Mr. Dejonwo to present to us. Mr. Dejonwo, the floor is yours.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
We can.
Finally, I found the problem.
Yes, welcome.
All right, thank you very much. I've been trying to join in since I was having some challenges with my audio. All right. I can say thank you, everybody, for taking our time to join us today on this presentation. Dapo, thank you for the good job that you have been doing for holding on and welcoming our participants. We thank you. We'll just take some time to wait for others to join before we start. They just give them some few minutes, then we'll start. And Dapo, thanks for the kind words and the laudable comments, or what will I call it now? You're making me feel more than I am. I am just another quantity surveyor on the street of Doha. But I thank you very much. So let us just take time to wait for others to join. And if there's anybody that has a few comments to talk about, we would like to have this session, this few minutes while we wait for people to network, to meet others online. And I mean, if you have a comment or something before we even go into the main discussion of the day, you can just signify and you can say one or two things while we wait. We have created this forum for all of us to engage ourselves, meet members of the professional community, not just in quantity surveying, in project management, in engineering generally. So let us just take this few minutes while we wait for others, and we can just come online and say one or two things. Or if you have comments about the presentation, even before we start, you can go ahead and do so. All right, so the ground is open for us. You can go ahead.
Additionally to what I was, I started to say, please, perhaps there are people, we understand the challenges of our tongues and how we all hear each other. So perhaps there are people here who, if you are not able to hear what we are saying clearly, we are happy to listen to your view on that, so that we can either slow down the presentation and without punch the words, or we have a way to communicate clearer to you. Please, if you are struggling with hearing us clearly, please feel free to raise your hand and let us know. Thank you.
All right. I'll just take this time to acknowledge the presence of not just, like I said, we thank everybody for spending our time to join us. I acknowledge the presence of some of my colleagues in the office and my bosses. I can see Mr. Mustafa is online. We thank you for coming. I can see my colleagues Donali here and a couple of people and friends in the industry. We thank you for taking our time to join us, and we recognize your presence in our midst. And we hope that we will all have an enjoyable and worthwhile session this afternoon. The presentation won't be for so long. We want to have time at the end for proper contribution, question and answer. The presentation in itself will be for about 40 minutes or less. Then we can go into a proper discussion so we can make it interactive. If you have questions, you can just take note of it. And at the end of the presentation, there'll be time to ask questions and make contributions. So thank you very much, and you're welcome. So we'll still take some few minutes to wait for others to join us. Thank you.
Well, it is my pleasure to listen to you talking about this this topic. It is a pleasure, really.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And we acknowledge those that are still in the holy month of Ramadan. We acknowledge our Muslims brother and our Muslim faithful, our Muslim members. We pray for Ramadan Kareem upon every one of us. And those that are having Good Friday today too, we acknowledge that His blessings be upon all of us. And let us continue to have a wonderful and prosperous life. We have professionals joining us from different parts of the world. You can see people here from Nigeria, people from here in the Middle East, people from Africa, different parts of the world. I see people joining us all the way from Rwanda. You're welcome. People joining all the way from the United States. You're welcome. You're welcome.
That's me, Bola.
Thank you for joining. All right. So in a minute or two, we will start so that we won't keep all of us waiting. In a minute or two, we'll start and we can quickly just have our session. So I'm thinking we'll just wait till for another, once the time is 2:45, that is 2:45 p.m. Qatar time, we will start. And we'll hopefully the presentation won't be more than 40 minutes thereabout. Then we can have an interactive session afterwards on contributions, because I'm sure when it comes to quantification and when it comes to claims, we all have one or two things that we want to say and want to share with ourselves. It's just to make ourselves better professionals. That's what this is all about. I want to share experiences as much as possible. Not to say that we won't go into the theories of it, but we won't dwell so much on that. The whole discussion, as much as possible, is for us to have, to share experiences, things that we might not be able to see in a textbook, things that we might not be able to experience by ourselves, but what others have experienced and they can share with us, and we can learn from it. So that when we see similar things in future, while we are practicing, while on our day-to-day job, we'll know how to go about it and can borrow from other people's experience and apply it to make our job easier. That's what this type of session is all about, sharing experience and picking up one or two things from one another. that is the mind frame that I want us to go into this time with. And most importantly, let us just be open-minded. This is a professional presentation, but unfortunately, this presentation has not been peer reviewed. So we can't say that, oh, it's been checked and all of that. And that's why by the time you see it, we are going to deliver it, and the content is much more of my experience and the things that you are all aware of. Most of you, I can say, are aware of more than 90% of the things I want to share. The only thing that you might not have experienced are the case studies I want to talk about, which are peculiar to me and my experience. But every other part is just things that you have seen. And at the end of the day, I just want you to have another perspective. That's why I implore you to be open-minded as we go into this discussion. Have an open mind to look at different aspects of how things happen in our industry. So in the next 1 minute, we'll start officially, and we can go ahead about the discussion. Thank you again for joining me.
Okay, while the presenter, Mr. Bolarinwa, will take us in a minute, I'll just quickly like tell us about this presentation is being conducted by Nigerian quantity surveyors in Qatar. We are privileged as QSs from Nigeria. Nigeria is a country in the West African part of the African continent. Some of us have been here for over a decade, some almost clocking 2 decades, and we've worked in different sectors of the Qatar construction industry. Some have been privileged to have worked even a little outside of Qatar. Some have worked from other parts of the Middle East. Whilst the bulk of us, of course, we came with experiences from Africa, from our domicile. Some have joined the Nigerian Council of Surveyors in Qatar from the UK. Some came from other parts, the Seychelles and the Maldives. And we are privileged. All of us we are grateful to have the platform to be able to anchor this particular program and be able to share knowledge. Now, like I said earlier, this will be a part of a series that would we employ those that are joining us as friends and visitors to please always be on the lookout for information regarding other webinars that would hold. This will be one of them, and there'll be several before the end of the year. We hope to engage us and also pass on knowledge as much as possible. And there'll be many anchors. And perhaps there are people amongst our visitors who are joining us who would like to associate with us, who would like to know a little more about our group. Please feel free to communicate with any one of us, myself inclusive, to ask any question. I will be willing and ready to answer all the questions you have. Also, perhaps you have an area of knowledge you want to share or to teach. Our platform is also available to give you a voice to share the knowledge that you want to share. Would like to review it, and then would also be ready to be okay to anchor it. So without saying further, Mr. Bolarinwa, please go on. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. So I'll put up the slides now for us to see. Can we all see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Can you make it a bit bigger as presentation style?
Okay, it's running as presentation from my side. Can you see it as presentation?
It's on the what do you call it now?
Okay.
The Microsoft
okay, all right.
The app, but it hasn't become
presentation
view yet.
Yes, let me do this. I don't know how I'm going to do this. No. Okay, let me just, I'm having challenges with that. Can we see it now?
Okay, we can still see it back to how it was.
Okay.
I think there's something you're supposed to click, maybe F9 or something, to make it into the
it's on my side there.
I think it's readable. We can go on.
Okay.
Yes, we can go on. Yes.
Okay, so like we said, hello? Yes. All right, so we said we are going to have this, what we call the basic series. And the series is about going back to what we call basics in our profession. What quantity surveying, what contract management, what commercial management is all about. The little things that we have all put aside and said, okay, we have gone further now, but these things still keep on coming back. So one of them is something about quantification and how it's important in terms of claims management. So we titled this the impact of quantification of works in claims preparation and assessment. And the presentation outline for today, we're having a brief overview of claims in construction and engineering contracts. We have quantification of works in construction and engineering contracts. We will talk about the impact of quantification on claims, preparation and the assessment. You can see that from how I have put it together, I have not separated it to say that I'll speak about preparation on one side and assessment on the other side, but I keep on putting it together because these days everything seems to go together in terms of collaboration on how the participants or the major stakeholders work in the construction industry. They will have limitations of quantification of works in claims preparation and assessment. Even though quantification of work is quite important in preparing claims and in assessing it, there are still limitations to it. Then there are some few best practices that we can adopt to help us work better. Then we'll have a simple discussion on case studies that can apply, that we have experienced, and we can take one or two things from them. We'll conclude that, then we'll go into question and contributions session. So without wasting more time, we can start from here. So in the first instance, what is claim? I've explained claim as a balancing tool in the construction as a balancing tool in construction and engineering contract. What I mean by this is that we understand from most text and even in the standard forms of contract like FIDIC and JCT that claim is a tool, a contractual mechanism that allows either of the party to have an opportunity to address things that are not going in their way. For example, every contract allows the contractor to make payments to make claims for payments. But if there are things that happen that the contractor does not have any other means to get back or to recover the losses on those things, how would there be a way to gain back money and time if there's no mechanism called claim? If there's no mechanism in contracts that the contractor can use or adopt to regain back, to make itself good, and not just against the contractor alone, also in terms of the employer too. In case there's something that is some form of losses that the employer has suffered by the action of the contractor, how can they regain back this if there is no mechanism called claim in the construction industry? So that is why we have claim as a balancing tool that help to balance the rights, the obligations, the duties of the contracting parties. And at the end of the day, through their working and trying to achieve the project success, everybody gets what they are supposed to get one way or the other by this mechanism called claims. And most of us are aware of different types of claim, the common types of claim in construction and engineering contracts. We have loss and expense claim. We have extension of time for completion claim. We have prolongation cost claim. We have acceleration. We have disruption. All of these claims have different bases and different tools of assessment or presentation and things like that. I can talk about just one of them because of the time, brevity of time. Let me just mention the extension of time claim. I know that most of us are used to it, and where the contractor is unable to complete the work due to actions of the employer, and he goes and makes a claim and says, I'm supposed to finish the job by a particular date, but due to reasons and due to several what they call delay events, I have to finish it by a particular time, and he makes a claim for an extension of time. And when that is granted, depending on how that is granted or how that is approved and accepted by both parties, there might be something that leads to the next item, which is prolongation cost claim. All of those things are things that we are used to. And there's something specific about this extension of time claim because it has origin, not just in contract, but also in law, where there's something called prevention principle in law that states that if by action of one party, the other party is unable to achieve what both of them have agreed to contractually, then the one that has stopped the other one from achieving what it's supposed to achieve cannot now recover against that party. So what do I mean by this? The prevention principle explains that if the employer stopped the contractor from finishing the work, the employer cannot now say that because the contractor did not finish when he was supposed to finish, he now wants to charge him for liquidated and ascertained damages, something like that. Rather, the employer must grant extension of time for completion to allow the contractor complete the work. So this shows how contractual mechanisms have been evolved over time to allow the parties in contract, employer, contractor, stakeholders, engineer, all of these participants to have a way, a mechanism to address their rights, to have their proper responsibility allocated to them, and to manage the risk that are involved in construction and engineering contracts altogether. And I'll try as much as possible, and you will see in this presentation that I try to use the word contracts rather than to use the word projects, because there are distinctions on how these are presented. It is best for us to use it in terms of contract because we are referring to things that are in law and are in contract rather than to the bone and the main fabric of the activity in themselves. So we have these different types of claims, and there are ways that they are presented and there are ways that they are assessed. And at the end of the day, the parties that are in contract, hopefully, I will say hopefully, because it's not all the time that they agree. Hopefully they agree on something and it leads to issuance of variation and things like that, and it is formalized. And as much as possible, these claims happening in construction and engineering contract helps to avoid disputes that can escalate through all of the dispute, processes, dispute resolution processes, and even up to litigation. So one of the benefits of having a mechanism such as claim in contract is to help to attack disputes at the first instance and stop the escalation as much as possible. So we can now move on to the next slide. What we mean by quantification in construction and engineering contract. Of course, I'm sure most of us have had experience with quantification of works in construction and engineering contracts. Most of us have prepared bills of quantities. Most of us have priced bills of quantities. Most of us have dealt with schedule of rate and things like that. That is what quantification is. But what I want us to look at differently in quantification is that quantification of construction work has its basis on the principle of accepted conventions and practices. What do I mean by that? When we were first introduced to numbers and counting, maybe at kindergarten level, we say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and that is just counting. And that is what we are still counting today. Even in preparing bills of quantities, you have enumerated items when you are just counting, right? But that convention has its basis in science, in engineering, and it goes on like that. And in what we call conventions, what we were told later on as we started learning about numbers is that when we're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, we are counting in number basis. And we say that number base is number to the base of 10. So that became an accepted convention, an accepted, let me put it in quote, an accepted law that is guiding how we are counting. The same thing comes into when we are doing quantification of works, right? We accept conventions for the counting, for how we want to describe the work that is to be quantified. We accept and we use conventions for how to describe the works that is to be done. And these conventions have evolved over time, and they have helped to guide how we quantify construction works. So we can see some of the what we call the accepted conventions for measuring works are in what is known today as standard methods of measurement, and there are different types of them. They help us to quantify work. When I say quantify and accept, it means when somebody in Doha here, Qatar, prepares a bills of quantities and it says that the volume of concrete is 1 cubic meter, somebody in Hong Kong, a different jurisdiction, picks up that quantity, that same bills of quantities. The person understands what that 1 cubic meter means because the method of measurement is the same. Sorry, not that it's the same as has been stated. In case the person in Hong Kong does not understand what this person means by saying the volume of concrete is 1 cubic meter, what that person has to do is to refer back to what? A term of reference, which is what? The standard method of measurement. So I listed a few methods of measurement that most of us are aware of here. We have the SMM series, the standard method of measurement series, and some of us will know that this has evolved into what they have new rules.
Sorry, Mr. Bolarinwa, please, can you move the slide? The slides don't seem to be moving.
It doesn't seem to be moving. Okay.
Yeah, move now.
All right.
All
right, it's moving now, right? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, it's moving now. Just
right.
Because you moved from claim to quantification, so we just wanted to slide to move.
All right. So this is where I've moved from the we can see here the outline to different types of claims. And now we are on quantification of works in construction. And that's where I was talking about the different types of standard methods of measurement. So we have the new rules of measurement, we have the civil engineering method of measurement, we have the principle of measurement, and so on and so on. Now, what I want us to know, and I'm sure that most of us are aware of this different methods of measurement, but what is important is that we should understand that they are based on convention, they are based on accepted conventions, they are based on principles that every time you use them, it brings a common language between those that are preparing documents and those that are interpreting it and those that are using it, right? And another aspect of looking at all this standard method of measurement is that they provide a basis for forming a bridge between what you have in drawings and specification into what you can have in bills of quantity, schedule of rates, and things like that. Meaning they form a bridge for translating works in terms of specification and drawing into cost and maybe time. We shall see in the course of this discussion why these things are important. And that is why we must, as much as possible, adhere in preparation of contract documents to these standards so as not to bring about disparities or discrepancies that can emanate in working on construction contracts. Now, we'll move quickly to impact of quantification.
Again, I'm sorry to be interjecting, but I guess this is the assignment you gave to me to do. Can you, if you could just, I don't know whether you tried it before, someone suggested that there is a button that is close to the Zoom button. If you press it, hopefully it will get into the presentation mode. Yes, probably, I don't know whether this is.
Is it better now?
It's clear. I can see, but some people may need to squint if they are not using a bigger screen. Now, okay. Is the icon not pressing the presentation icon?
It presents, yes. It's presenting from my side, but it's not presenting from your side. That is the challenge.
Oh dear.
It's presenting from your side.
Please go on, sir. Please go on.
Okay, all right. So I'm trying to make it bigger now. So I said quantification of work can serve as a tool for identifying the primary cause or causes of claim. Right? That is the first item that we have there. Now, this speaks to when we are preparing a claim or when you are assessing a claim. Both of them go hand in hand. Understanding quantification of works can serve as a tool to identify that indeed there is a reason for a contractor, for instance, to make a claim. So how do I mean? It's possible that the contractor looks at the bills of quantities or maybe an instructed work, and it sees that because of the principles guiding quantification of works, I can make a claim, right? When there is a disparity between what you have in the bills of quantities and how things have been measured. Let me give an example. This might, I'm not giving it in the full context because we can go back and start identifying and say, oh, maybe the contractor should have done this and that. But let's just for the purpose of this illustration, let us take a simple example. The bills of quantities upon which a document is prepared is say CSM. No, let's say SMM7. I know that is a bit far back, and inside there, concrete is measured in cubic meter. However, the contract document and the tender document says the bills of quantity will be prepared using SMM7, but by the time you go into where concrete should be, concrete in foundation, for example, the person preparing the bills of quantities had measured concrete in square meter. Then there is a disparity there. The standard method says cubic meter, but the what's it called? The bills of quantities is showing it as square meter. One would say maybe at ITT they should have cleared all of that, but let us just assume for illustration that is not clear, and that was not cleared at the time. At this stage, when the contractor notices it, it can be a source of claim. I'm just using that as a simple illustration. Of course, that can be attacked, that can be resolved in another way, but that's kind of reasoning that we want us to say. When people have not used the proper convention in for quantifying works, it can bring a source to identify that there is a source of claim in this regard. The other thing, the other point that I have there is that the quantification of work has proven to be a significant factor in establishing entitlement during claims preparation and assessment. So in this regard, what this is talking about is when contractors or even consultants or engineer in this particular case that is assessing the claim that a contractor has brought forward, or when the contractor is even preparing his own claim, right, his basis of entitlement, right, can be established in quantification of works. And how would they do that? They will rely on what you have in the method of measurement that the contract says that the quantification has been based upon. They will rely on the principles in the pricing documents that the contract document has said the whole contract is based upon. So using the requirements in quantification, a contractor or somebody assessing a claim can establish entitlement can establish entitlement for claims. Then we can also go to quantification of what is utilized to calculating the impact in terms of time and cost of claims. So I know that we have been talking about costs so far, but we should understand again that using quantification, after you have established entitlement of a claim, you can now use that same principle of quantification to see what the time impact of the work will be, what the cost impact will be. And I can use a simple example here. If you establish that, based on quantification, there is additional work that has been carried out, and it shows that there is another 10 cubic meter of work to be done, right? What is the impact of this 10 cubic meter of concrete to be done, right, on the site? The impact will be in terms of cost, which can be established. The other part will be the impact will be on time. And how is that established? Then you bring things like productivity studies and productivity that have been used inside the bills of quantity or inside the schedule, the baseline of the contract. If what has been done, if this additional works, if this quantified work will impact, for instance, the baseline and the critical part of the work, would it have impact on the time? Would it bring about what's it called? The reason for a contractor to make claims for an extension of time. So we can see that even with the fact that what we're talking about is just quantification of work, from there we can see that it can be used as a tool to establish basis for time and basis for cost. So the reasoning that comes with this is that quantification of works as is a veritable tool for all of us, either from the side of the contractor, from the side of the engineer or consultant, or even from the side of the employer that is adjudicating this at the end of the day, to know that by quantifying and using the proper principles and convention, you can establish the basis for time and you can establish the basis for cost in claim. Then quantification of work can serve as a tool for verifying the validity or validating quantum of claim. So still following from what we have been discussing, right? There is entitlement, there is time and cost impact that has been established. Then the other part, when it comes to validating the quantum, quantification of works helps for us to for the employer at this stage to adjudicate. You know, let me just take a simple process where you have the employer, you have the consultant, and you have the contractor. So from the contractor preparing his claim, the contractor has relied on the principle in quantification, using the right conventions in method of measurement and all of that to establish the basis of his claim, to quantify his claim, and to present his claim to the engineer or the consultant to assess. And in assessing the contractor's claim, the engineer too has relied on the same principles in those conventions, in those methods of measurement and all of that to assess the contractor's claim, and has been able to establish to a reasonable extent that there is an entitlement and that quantum has been established. So the employer, the consultant presents this to the employer. Now, the employer that we have now, we are having intelligent employer, meaning you and I that are professionals now work as an employer's representative, and we're looking at this document and able to, make the final decision and adjudicate and advise our employers. So what do? We rely on the same documents, the same principles that they have, used in quantifying, in establishing entitlement, and in coming to say that this is what the claim is all about. So we can see that the principles in quantification of works are served as the tool, not just for providing establishment, not just for quantifying, but for validating whatever the claim is all about in its quantum. Then after going through all of this, we can say that quantification of works also help, right, in effectively managing claim because it facilitates negotiated settlement. It's one thing for there to be established quantification. It's one thing there to be established entitlement. When it comes to resolving claims, like I said earlier on, and I tried to establish that claims helps to avoid disputes. And one of the easiest way to avoid disputes in construction contract is to have settlement, and most of the time negotiated settlement. And being able to quantify what the entitlement is, being able to quantify the quantum helps both parties to come to an agreed and easy settlement. Let me put it that way. So when negotiating the claim, because the parties that are involved have a clear understanding, or let me say a better understanding of the quantum, and they have used the same basis to establish entitlement, the same basis to establish quantum, it is easier for them when negotiating settlement to come to agreement. That's why quantification of works helps in facilitating negotiated settlement, because the basis and how the claim progressed, or how the claim was progressively elaborated, is on the basis of recognized conventions and recognized principles. Then quantification of work helps to improve data and budget accuracy in claims management. Not sounding like a broken record, if all of what we have discussed so far has been on the same basis, right, the data and the budget accuracy becomes better. So everybody going through the claim process, all the parties going through the claim process have been using the same information, have been using the same term of reference, When this person says it's 1 cubic meter, they understand that it is 1 cubic meter. It's not like one person is saying it's 1 cubic meter based on CSMM, another person is saying 1 cubic meter based on NRM. 1 cubic meter is 1 cubic meter. Let me try to put this in perspective. From what we have said to date, in CSMM, let me say CSMM 3, for example, when it comes to concrete or concrete in manholes, for example, CSMM states that manhole will be measured in enumerated item, and it states that manhole will be a composite item where everything that has to do with it will be described and in the rules to the measurement, in the measurement rules and all of that, and says that it should be in numbers. And that is the basis. So when the contract says that these quantities have been prepared, or these bills of quantities have been prepared based on new CSMM, one will expect that the manhole description inside will be enumerated item. And once the parties, the person presenting, the contractor, for example, starts by presenting the quantification of those manholes as enumerated item, the person assessing the claims that has to do with manholes will rely on that as well. The person will not have to go to SMM, for example, or NRM to start where concrete is measured in volumes, in cubic meter, and start using that to assess what a party has presented using CSMM. So because of this alignment in presentation, because of this alignment in term of reference, where everybody is referring to CSMM, it makes it easier for people that are now dealing with the cost, for the employer that has a budget to deal with, to have the claims management process help in the data accuracy and budget altogether. Then for the last part of one of the benefits of, or one of the impact ways to assess the impact of quantification of claims in preparation and assessment of quantification of works, how it helps is that it provides uniformity, grounds for uniformity in claims preparation and assessment, which is similar to what I've been explaining all together. Once the terms of reference have been established, quantification provides equal ground. So you have the quantity surveyor from the contractor side preparing his impact of a claim, and you have the quantity surveyor from the engineer side assessing it. Once the convention for measurement, the convention for calculation has been established, this provides uniformity and everybody will be on the same page. And it can be easily assessed. We can have a situation, which I have experienced, where, for example, cables in MEP should be in linear meter, right? You have a contractor presenting the cables instead of in their claims presenting cables in linear meter, they are presenting cables as an item, right? In that particular instance, it will be difficult for the person assessing the claim to say, okay, what is the linear meter of the cable that you are presenting? How long is it? So for me to know that, because the pricing of cable at the end of the day, it comes at so much reals or so much dollars per linear meter. But when you present it as an item, how do I quantify it? How do I assess it? But when you are using the right convention, the right standard in your presentation of claims, your cable presentation will be in linear meter, and the person assessed it will be able to say, okay, yes, you have measured cables from point X to point Y, and it is 10 meters, and the bill price for it is so much reals or $10 per linear meter. And so we can now both say that, yes, you are actually entitled, or the quantum of this, your claim is is so much, the rate times the quantity, right? Which is what the bills of quantity says. But when somebody goes out of that convention, right, that does not provide the grounds for uniformity, goes out of that convention and uses something else, says it is an item, says it is a sum, then you have challenges in resolving claim. And we will see that in the next slide, where we are saying that there are limitations, even though we want to use quantification as the basis of measurement, or as a basis of presenting and of preparing claim and assessing it, there are limitations that are associated with it. So in the next slide, we will discuss some of the limitations. So some of the limitations, we'll start from the first one. The guidance offered by quantification of works in management of claim is restricted to the provisions of the contract document, and the method of measurement. What we are trying to say here is that in the first instance, whatever it is that is, contained in the convention you want to use, the contract must give you the power to use it. How do I mean? In the ITT, instruction to tender, or in the tender document altogether, it will have described, or it will have mentioned the standard method of measurement, or the method of measurement that has been adopted in preparing the bills of quantities, or in preparing the pricing document. It all depends. It might be schedule of rates, it might be lump sum, whatever the case may be. But if the document does not mention a particular method of measurement, you cannot use it. Meaning, in the first instance, the power or the effectiveness of the method of measurement that you are going to refer to must be expressly mentioned and described in the contract document, and that gives it the power. So that is the limitation. So how do I mean? You have a civil engineering construction, let's say a road construction, but unfortunately, the pricing document mentions a document like NRM as the document upon which the bills of quantity was prepared. That will be a mismatch, and it will be challenging when you have a claim to prepare. So one will prefer, and that's why you should always go into the particular conditions or the supplemental condition, depending on the type of contract, or notes on pricing, where it says these bills of quantities has been prepared, or this pricing document has been prepared based on a particular standard of measurement. And we've also seen a situation where they says these bills of quantities or this pricing document has been prepared in conformity with a particular standard method of measurement. So those are where lawyers or people that have drafted those documents are trying to be careful and trying to provide a room for them to say, oh, it's not just that according to this alone, but in conformity with as much as possible. You can also see a situation where they say it has been prepared in accordance with this as much as possible, but the people pricing or the people trending or the eventual contractor should also have to find formal interpretation along other documents and with recognized convention. So what we are trying to say is that the power that this quantification has, or quantification of work, or the standard method of measurement, is a function of what the contract states in the first instance. Then in preparation of tender documents and consequent quantification of work, the human factor is also there. The competence and the skills of practitioners is of utmost importance. How do I mean this? If people don't take care when they prepare contract documents, or when they prepare bills of quantities, or when they prepare ITT and things like that, there is no foolproof system. Yes, there are guidance provided by the method of measurement. Yes, there are guidance provided by this convention, but the human element will always remain. That's why we have sessions like this, where we try to remind ourselves that we should take care in preparing tender documents. We should be more alert, and we should follow standards, and we should follow principles, and we should continue to train and retrain ourselves on new things, or things that are coming up in the industry, so that we are better prepared to deliver our services as professionals. Because the human element is something that is difficult for anybody to manage, but what we can do has to do with being more careful and developing competencies or the competence to deal with things like this in preparing documents. I also mentioned here that when change control systems are ineffectively managed and allow for unchecked interference from major stakeholders such as employer, its representatives, its end users, it can have negative impact on claims management in general, and the quantification of work is no exception. What I mean by this is that when you have unchecked change management system, unchecked interference, the client comes to site today and says, I want this, comes tomorrow, I want that, or the client comes today, end user comes tomorrow and says, I want it to be painted. Another person comes tomorrow and says, I want a wallpaper. Another person comes tomorrow and says, no, I want this thing to be 1 meter high. Another person says, no, make it 250 mm high. all of those interference, when it's not checked and the engineer is not trying to put all of this in place and say, no, let us go through what the contract says, the client representative or the contract administrator, as the case may be, is not coming in and saying that this is how this should be dealt with, this interference should be controlled. There isn't much that will be achieved at the end of the day when claims emanate from this situation. And quantification of work will be limited in its impact to control or to make the claims preparation and assessment effective, because all those interference cannot be checked. Have not been checked, and they will impact the entire process negatively, and will make any form of claim management, any form of change control situation ineffective. Let me put it that way, because we have seen it. Practitioners have seen it that when the client goes, all kinds of, people are coming from all sides saying they want this today, they want that tomorrow, to make it difficult for the impact of any change management or quantification of work to have impact when it comes to claim preparation and assessment. Then the lack of available standards, convention, and data required to accurately measure and describe new work items, such as information technology works, can make it challenging to quantify them accurately. What I mean by this is that, yes, most of us are used to concrete, we are used to steel works, we are used to the MEP that we are seeing today. But technology is moving and things are changing. So when we don't have new standards, data to describe new things that are happening, new kind of works that we are involved with, it makes it challenging that quantification can help when claims emanate from this aspect of the works. What do I mean? And I used information technology as an example, which we shall see when we go further in terms of the case studies that I brought up, that there are things that are happening in the information technology ecosystem. We are having license, we are having fees, we are having renewal fees, we are having all of these things that are happening. How do we quantify it as quantity surveyors or contract manager or commercial manager? How do we make sure that when we are preparing ITT, when we are preparing bills of quantity, when we are preparing schedule of rates or even lump sum contract, how do we make sure that all of these things have been accurately measured and described to forestall future claims emanating from them? The challenges that we are having is that the standard that we have, the NRMs and the methods of measurement and even the CSMM are not adequately equipped to deal with this aspect of work that are coming in. For example, we might say CSMM, when it comes to information technology, to what extent? We know that CSMM is, to extent, talking about what's it called now? Blocks, cement, road, drainage, and things like that. But what about traffic lights? What about signals? What about CCTV cameras? What about monitoring devices? What about internet? What about Wi-Fi? And all of these things are coming in. How do we accurately measure and describe them? We put them as provisional sum, then we bring in, when we come to the provisional sum, we now issue instruction for the provisional sum, and we expect the expert or the specialist in that to just quantify, and we just measure them against each other. And at the end of the day, everybody's happy and we just go by our way. But we need to now evolve our practice to be able to bring this thing down and break it down further in our measurement and accurately describe them. Then I also mentioned that the absence of standardization in terms of convention and regulations across different regions and jurisdictions can also impact the quantification of works in claims management. We know that these days we are having international construction where we have, for example, a construction work happening in Africa, in Rwanda, in Nigeria, owned by sponsors or sponsors in the Middle East, where the contractor is coming from Europe or America. So you're having multifaceted, different parties that are involved in this. How do we bring in convention or standardization such that everybody that is involved and in preparing the quantification of the work or in preparing the contract documents, we have uniformity in standard in contract, we have uniformity in measurement. and we have uniformity in the contract document. We also seen situations where you have people, designers in Japan, using the standards in Japan for their design. Then you have to use CSMM, or you have to use NRM that is prepared in Europe to a large extent to translate designs in Japanese or in Chinese to quantities that will be priced by contractors in the Middle East to carry out a job in Africa. So this lack of standardization, this lack of uniform convention has brought about limitations to how we can apply quantification of works in management of claims. That is not to say that it is a bad day for all of us. That is not to say that the end has come. No. But what we have seen is that these standard methods of measurement and these conventions too are constantly evolving, are constantly being updated and being improved upon to accommodate this novel situation that we are seeing, so that we can bring about uniformity and may ensure that the construction processes are not impacted and the project's delivery, the success are still achieved. Having said that, there are some practices that we can adopt that can help all of us to manage these limitations that have just been identified. So I mentioned avoidance. In risk management, one of the ways to, one of the risk responses that we can have is to avoid risk. And how do we do that? Is to eliminate the source of the risk. And one of the ways we can eliminate all these discrepancies that I have just explained now is that we can adopt a more suitable procurement strategy and documentation, such as the use of appropriate standard methods of measurement that can help eliminate the sources of claims related to quantification. I mentioned something like this earlier on, where I said that if you have a job, if you have a project that has to do with road or civil works, for example, based on experience and based on what is contained between the standard method of measurement, it might be more appropriate to use CSMM as the quantification document, as a standard method of measurement, rather than for you to use documents such as SMM, for example. So that is what we are saying. So if you use CSMM, you have avoided the source of discrepancy that can happen in future, where you have some work that you want to describe, some work that you want to measure that are not properly described or measured, or you don't have the proper libraries, the proper standard, the proper classification in SMM or in NRM, for example, to measure. So what I mean by this, or what we are saying by this, is for us to avoid the source from the root cause of what can bring discrepancy in quantification of work, by using the appropriate measures of measurement and using the proper procurement strategy, where you have to use traditional, where you have to use design and build, use design and build, where you have to go to proper tender, open tender, use that. So once we use what is best suited for a particular procurement, it will help to minimize or to completely, if possible, at times you might not have the decision where you are completely, but as much as possible, eliminate some identified risk in the procurement process or in the delivery of a project. The other thing we can do to deal with this risk or to respond to this risk is to mitigate the impact. And how do we do that? By streamlining the revision and editing processes of standard procurement documents, such as SMM, the tender document, the standard form of contract. This can help to minimize the probability and the consequences of claims related to quantification. So what do I mean by this? Most of us are used to bespoke contract. We have had experience in bespoke contract. We see cases where a standard form, let me say, for example, a FIDIC standard form of contract has been amended to some extent to form what is now a bespoke contract to a particular contracting organization. Doing things like this, if it's not done with care, it can be a source of discrepancy in future that can lead to claims where that editing or that revision, that revising process has affected the core of the document and has provided opening sources for claims to emanate either from the contractor or the employer, or I mean, whatever the case may be. And not just that, even in drafting the contract documents, right, in drafting the ITT, rather than referring to a particular method of measurement, the drafters or the document or the pricing document or the notes to the tender, or as the case may be, or the supplemental conditions have mischaracterized what has to do with quantification. And so those that are pricing it and the contractor that is working with it in future will face challenges while working with such document. So as much as possible for us that are involved with it, let us be guided and let us take more care when we are revising or adapting standard documents. Then I said thorough examination of the construction or production process. It is possible to develop guidance in preparing tender, and I said, through an examination of the construction or production process, it is possible to develop guidance for the preparation of tender, pricing, and contract documents. And I said this in turn can significantly enhance claims management concerning quantification of works. So what I'm saying is that for us, when you're preparing the tender, when you're preparing the tender, or when we're preparing claims in itself, you must try to put yourself in the shoes of those that will go through the post-contract. You must try to understand, have a clear understanding of the construction process, what is done. If you want to cast concrete, there will be formwork, then there will be reinforcement, and there will be concrete. Oh, is it going to be mixed by hand? Is it going to be mixed? Is the concrete going to be mixed by hand, or is it going to be mixed using machine, or is it going to be what's it called, concrete mix that will be poured on site? So you must have understanding of the construction process, the production process, when preparing claims or when preparing tender document. It helps to avoid or to mitigate claims coming from quantification. And when preparing claims or when even assessing it, understanding what happened or how it's supposed to happen can also limit. For example, I have experienced a case in which the productivity of the contractor was impaired. How? Because the work was the scope and the limitation was created by access to site or the other parties that were using the same property or the same piece of, there were occupiers on the land where the contractor was supposed to work. So where a contractor was supposed to bring in a bulldozer, for example, to do a demolition, he had to resort to using hammers and chisels and things like that to do that same demolition. So by understanding the production process or what went on in the construction, this can help, right, in preparing the claims, and this can help at the same time in assessing the claim, rather than for you to just stay outside and just say, what does the book say? What does the method of measurement say? Oh, if it's not in line with that, then this is my position. No, it should be what actually happened. Oh, they couldn't do this because of this limitation that were imposed on the entire process at the time. So what I'm talking about here is that we should immerse ourselves into what is going on site at the time, or immerse ourselves into what will happen while we're preparing the tender document. So that can help to address and use quantification as a means to deal with claim preparation and assessment. And I said, when drafting tender and contract document, it is crucial to consider the construction problem, as this will also significantly impact on the preparation of evaluation of claim. This is similar to what I've been saying, that we should take time, especially before the contract come into life, before we sign the contract, at the time of tender, at the time of all of those tender negotiation and things like that. We should take time to immerse ourselves in the construction process and the production process. This will help to a reasonable extent, to reduce the incidence of claim that can emanate from quantification of works. Then I also mentioned that to prevent inconsistencies in the source of documents utilized for the tender, construction, claim preparation, and evaluation, it is advisable to implement effective document management and version control practices. What I mean by this is that you will see a situation where somebody's IFC, is somebody's IFT, or somebody's a contractor is preparing a claim using Rev 0, where the person that is assessing the claim is using revision 1 or revision 2 or revision 3. So we should ensure that when we are having, in the construction process that we are involved with, version control and document management practices is very, very key and very, very crucial. Even from the time of preparing the tender document and from the time of even going into the contract, that we should ensure that all the parties, from contractors to employer to the consultant to the engineer, and everybody should be working on the same version of document. So when the person that is preparing a claim says, I prepared my claim based on IFC revision 5, that should be the same IFC revision 5 that the person that is assessing it is using, right? So that all the documents will be aligned and all the quantities, description, and the event and the situation, all of them will be aligned, and there will be, we won't have to spend a lot of time even having to resolve the issue of document before we even come to resolve the issue that is core or the crux of the claims matter. So all of these practices that I have just listed above can help to a significant extent to ameliorate the impact of the limitations that are associated with quantification of works in preparing claims and assessing claims in the construction and engineering industry. So having said all of this and going quickly without boring us too much, I'm sure some of us are already wondering that, okay, these are some of these things that I've been saying, they are used to it, but I'm just trying to say this, I'm just bringing this for us to have a different perspective to how we deal with claims and how we look at claims, especially from the angle of quantification, especially from the angle of standard, especially from the angle of standard measurement. I would like to use some case studies, to illustrate what I've been saying. And these are my own personal experiences, and they are real life case studies. The first one here has to do with claims originating from reference point for measurement of depth of excavation in a remeasured contract for a road project. So what I've done here, I don't have the client's consent to bring about all the details of what happened, even though this is a closed matter, but I just want to use it for illustration purposes. The two cutouts that you can see at the bottom, the M2 and A4, are from CSMM3, right? The measurement rules inside CSMM3. So I can give a quick description of the project. So it's a remeasured contract for a road construction. So what happened here is that in doing excavation for the road work itself, right, there was discrepancy in quantity at the end of the project while carrying out final remeasurement, while reconciling quantities. I'm saying here that it is not a lump sum contract where the quantities are deemed included in the works. It is a remeasured contract. We have rates and you have all of that. So what happened particularly in this case, that there are two, let me say, overlapping works. And I want you to have at the back of your mind that the project I'm describing is not a 1 kilometer road. It's not a 2 kilometer road. It's something very significant, like 20, 30 kilometers over a large expanse of land. So we have two overlapping works. One, cut and shuffle. I'm sure most of us are aware of that. I've experienced one or two of that. We know what I'm talking about. Then the other is normal excavation for the road works. So at the end of the project, the contractor measured the quantity of excavation that he deems are associated with the road works. And the engineer says the quantity that you have measured is in excess, right? At that time, I was to adjudicate or, working as a client rep to see who is correct between the contractor and the employer. And what myself and my team determined was there was an issue in the preparation of the bills of quantities. And it came from what I have brought up here, how the quantities will be measured. And how the quantities will be measured is stated in the in the SMM. The M2, for those that are aware, you can also take a look at this. This is class E, I think, of SMM CSMM3. It says that the commencing surface adopted in the preparation of bills of quantities shall be adopted for the measurement of the completed works. Meaning, when you want to quantify the quantity of excavation in the road work now, I'm being specific in the road work, in the bills of quantities, the commencing level should be stated. Now, in preparing that particular bills of quantities, the commencing level was not stated. That is the crux and that is the mistake. So let us now go to the next description. This is additional measurement rules in the same CSMM. It says the commencing surface shall be identified in the description of each item for work involving excavation, for which the commencing surface is not the original surface. The excavated surface shall be identified in the description of each of the items for working involving excavation, for which the excavated surface is not the final surface. So in this particular case, for the road construction, the surface of excavation is the formation level, while there's also the original level. So in this particular case, we have two surfaces, the formation level and the original ground level. So in preparing its quantities, the contractor, because the bills of quantities did not mention that for the road works, the excavation shall be the formation level. That was left open. The contractor says, okay, the formation level for me shall be the commencing surface, which is the original level. But when it came to the quantification of when it came to the engineer says the commencing surface for me shall be the formation level. But the contractor says the formation level for me shall be the original level. Now, looking at these two levels, of course, the original level was higher than the excavation level because, for the formation level, generally across this particular site. In some cases, it was lower. In some cases, it's higher because we are talking about the large expanse of land. So at the end of the day, there was a claim by the contractor saying that I have excavated more to get to the formation level before even doing the road construction. The employer is saying, the engineer is saying, no, you don't have to. This is the formation level, is where we are starting the roadwork excavation from. And this claim, as small as it might, it might appear to be, which is about 150 to 200 mm or even about 300 mm, over 20, 30 kilometers, the claim at the end of the day was as much as 16 million Qatari riyals. And the contractor was successful. Why? Because one, the things that are identified before, delimitation and quantification, people did not work with the standard measures of measurement. People did not look at it at the time of tender. People did not look at it at the time of preparing the documents. And most especially the human element, the human factor, the competence of those preparing the document that did not know that they are supposed to describe accurately that the formation, the commencing level for the road part of the work should be the formation level to avoid this type of issue. And in this particular claim, the contractor was successful and was able to claim the 16 million. So that is the first case study. And quickly, let us go to the other case study. Now, this is a novel item, and some of us might not even have had this type of situation before. So this claim is originating from the quantification of license fee in an expansion project involving access control and CCTV camera. So what happened in this particular case is it's an expansion of an existing facility. There's physical construction. Imagine having 10 rooms, then I'm adding additional 20 rooms. And in the 10 rooms, I had some CCTV camera. Now in the other 20 rooms, I'm going to add additional CCTV cameras. But however, because this is IT now, there are some things that most of us are not used to. The license fee that was used for the software running the initial camera was paid for by the employer, of course, at the time. And all the things that the employer wanted to do with the software and do with the CCTV camera, the employer was able to do at the time, which was what the license fee that they paid for, which is more like an end user kind of license fee. But due to this expansion, where the employer wants to add additional CCTV camera, the employer requires what they say in IT terms, backdoor access to the software so that it can incorporate or it can make the new cameras and the software to be able to see the old cameras, and all of them can work together as new cameras. But the owners of the license on the original software, the original system, and it says, no, your license fee was only as a user. Let me put it in perspective. Most of us have used Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel, and even the PowerPoint that I'm presenting is done by Microsoft. Let's assume that you have Microsoft Office in your organization. You now want to go on to another software, another suite of software, and you say you want to bring in some other word processing software, and you now say, Microsoft, can we change? You call it Microsoft Word and it is blue, for example. Now, because our organization and our color is red, we want to make this blue to become red, and we don't want to call it Word. We want to call it script. Do we have access to change things like that? Microsoft will tell you that, no, you are violating our rights. You are violating your end user terms. You cannot change that, and we won't even give you the access to be able to go behind and change all of that. That's exactly what happened in this particular case. But that is just for a simple software. So the question now comes to the people that prepared the tender document, the people that prepared the contract document. Are they not supposed to be aware that this kind of work was going on, and there should be a license fee to open the back door to allow for integration of the old software and the new platform that are going to come together, and they all work together as one? These are new novel items. I'm sure that inside the bills of quantities and inside the current what we call NRM or even CSMM, you will not see this. I'm mentioning this as CCTV camera in a building, for example. It can also happen in a civil construction when you have roads and you have traffic light, you have traffic signals, you have IT monitoring equipment that are used in road construction to monitor road. You have billboards, I'm sorry, not billboards, you have road signs that are electronic, that are digital these days. Could there be a situation similar to this where you have had a particular vendor providing that before, providing a particular brand and type of digitization of your road signs, then you want to have another one, and you need to have a situation where you have to go into the back door to bring about the integration of the software? That is exactly what we are talking about there. So these are novel, these are new situations that we are seeing, and we have seen that the current method of measurement that we have, the current documentation and data that we have, are not adequately equipped to deal with this kind of situation. Of course, you must understand that I am, summarizing all of this. I'm not going into the depth of it, to the depth of what actually happened, but these are the notes I just want us to take out of it to understand that there are limitations in the current method of measurement and the standards that we have. And we are coming to the end. I hope I've not bored all of us too much, and I hope that we are enjoying this. So in conclusion and in summary, we have said that effective management of claim is crucial in construction and engineering contract, as it helps to prevent disputes and it facilitates proper handling of rights and benefits of all the parties. Because of claims, all the rights and benefits and of all the parties are properly managed. The client can claim against the contractor can claim against the client for what they feel that when they have suffered some losses or things like that, and it can help to balance the relationship. And most especially, claims helps to avoid dispute and escalation, even through ADR for mediation and all of that, to arbitration and what most of us want to avoid as much as possible, litigation. I also explained that quantification of works is an essential tool in managing claims within construction and engineering contracts. Its quantification helps provide the basis, provide the terms of reference, provide uniformity in assessment, provide uniformity in preparation, provide basis of quantification and validation of quantum and things like that. So we can say that quantification is very, very important. And I said management of claim in construction and engineering contracts through quantification of work faces certain limitations and challenges. I explained that, said that just like from the case studies that we have seen now, that there's the human part of it, that the processes are not foolproof, that the contract document gives the power to the document that you want to use in the first place in your measurement, that we don't even have available standard for some type of emerging works or emerging practices in the quantification of claims. So those limitations are there. And in dealing with those limitations that I mentioned, that incorporating best practices and preventive measures into the application of quantification of works can be advantageous in management of claims. Yes, we have limitations. Yes, there are challenges. But at the same time, if we can adopt and we can use these best practices, it will help to reduce the impact of the claim. And one of those things that I mentioned is that you avoid altogether, the source of this by using best, most suitable procurement, using standard method of measurement. I said we should take care when we adopt or when we try to adapt, standard documents like contract documents, and we should also, as much as possible, try to make sure that all the parties are working together on uniform project. Bring about uniformity in how we work, and use proper version control when assessing documents in preparation of claims or even in the assessment. I said practitioners are responsible for producing tender and conduct documents should exercise caution when it comes to quantifying the works. So we take ourselves back to how all of this came about from the beginning, that in the procurement process, when preparing tender documents, when preparing ITT and things like that, and when preparing contract documents, the practitioners, the quantity surveyors, the contract administration, the commercial managers, whatever role that you might find yourself in, the engineers, you must, as much as possible, take care in preparing those documents, because eventually in post-contract, there might be the source of claim. Then there are recent and emerging cases. I mentioned that recent and emerging cases suggest a need for updates in measurement methods and standards. That cannot be overemphasized, especially for what we are seeing in the information technology ecosystem. And that is going to continue, whether we like it or not. We're going to have new advancement. We're going to have technology coming in, being incorporated into the things that we are doing, that will make it that will require us to find a way to measure these types of works. It won't just be limited to, we can see a situation maybe in coming years. We're already getting there. We have places now where you have guest management system that you see in a hotel, right? Where the curtains, the lights, everything is automated and things like that. Soon we have such things in our houses. How do we measure them? How do we accurately describe them? We might have a situation where we start having sensors inside the wall or on the table or on the chair that we have in the offices or even in our homes, or inside the floor, that can heat up, that can cool down, that can do things like that. Are the standard methods that we have today accurately effective enough to measure those, to describe those, and to help in claims management? Those are the novel things that we are saying that are coming up, and all of us should be prepared for it, and all of us should look into how this can impact as we are professionals in claim, as we get involved in our day-to-day business in managing claims and using quantification of works in preparing claims and in assessing claims. So thank you, everybody. We are at the end of our presentation. I hope I did not bore us too much, and we can now go into the question and answer session. So I say thank you very, very much. You are welcome.
I wanted to jump in earlier on, but I tried to restrain myself because actually I enjoyed it to the very toe. Mr. Dejonwo, I know all of us will agree that Mr. Dejonwo did a very good presentation of this particular topic, because truly we can't exhaust this presentation at just this sitting. So we want to appreciate Mr. Dejonwo for his presentation. I would have said, let me quickly do a roundup or a summation of everything that is spoken, but because we are trying to run with time, because we see that we don't want, one of the things that I picked from his teaching is about overruns. So we don't want time overruns, so that we don't have the visitors bring up their own claim for extension of time, and whereby they'll be looking for prolongation costs attached to it. We don't want that. So I think we'll just quickly jump, because I listed a couple of things he said. Well, one of the major things that I want us to take away from this is that quantification, basically, he said claim is a balancing tool, and that is something we have to take. That idea, I'm hearing it for the first time ever. That particular mindset that is a balancing tool. You know, it balances everything. And also, one of the things I want to take away from this his presentation is that quantification is actually an essential tool in claims management. Now, a lot of us are very senior practitioners at this stage, and so quite a number of people have actually forgotten the basics of quantification. A lot of us these days will push it back to who we refer to as the juniors. So it's essential, especially as some of us will be going into private practice, and some of us will be going into some other levels of work, to begin to realize that these basics, you have to go back to them and remember them as much as possible. Thank you, Mr. Dejonwo. I believe there are people that may have questions, and we'll just try and make the questions as quick, as brief, as quick as possible. Please, if you do have a question, we encourage that you tap the sign that shows on your screen that says raising up your hand, so that we can limit it to not too many questions, and we can just quickly wrap it all up. So any questions, please?
And also, if you have contributions, you can please add to what we have just discussed. Do you have any hand raised?
I believe there should be questions, especially when he was delving into new ideas. Some of us are privileged, have powers that can control or that can speak to FIDIC and speak to the powers and the bodies that regulate these quantification tools. I would employ that. If you have any question, please, except or we may send a question.
We have a question. We have a question here. Yes. We have a question from Mr. Yaya.
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dejonwo. Your presentation was really a nice presentation, and it carries a lot of stuff. What I want to ask is this. With regards to the quantification of the works and the issue of claims, what roles does notes on pricing and QCS play? Do they help the cause of any claim assessment?
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. That is a very, very good question. Okay. How I will address that is this. QCS, for those that are joining us from different parts of the world, QCS is Qatar Construction Standards, right? It's the same thing as you see British standard, American standard, another B.Sc, AIS, something, CSI, things like that. So those are standards in the country or in the region that where the project is going on. Now, QCS are standards that are akin to specification and around that. Like in most standard forms of contract, there's what they call priority of documents that gives strength and power to any contract document. So it says that this document is stronger than this document, document is stronger than this document. When you have discrepancy between two documents, you go to the one that has hierarchy. So when it comes to quantification of works, right, depending on where the claim or where the issue is, you have to rely on a document that is stronger in the hierarchy of documents. So let me make a perfect example. I'm just talking all off my head. Most of the time, you have specification and drawings being higher than bills of quantities. And bills of quantities is a secondary document derived from specifications, from drawings and things like that. Like I explained earlier, it's a document that tries to convert those drawings, specifications, client requirements into cost, right? So it's a secondary document that is derived from those primary documents. So those primary documents have more strength than them. Then at times, you have seen a situation where you have standards such as the QCS, which is lower than the client requirements that might be in contract documents, in supplemental condition, and things like that. So it's possible that in quantification of works, QCS says something. that says measure this thing like this. Specification says something else, right? Then contract document or client requirements says something else, right? When trying to resolve that issue, when it comes to quantifying, you rely on the document that has the highest hierarchy in priority of document for interpretation. The standards are there as a guide most of the time, but most contracts in the what's called in the supplemental condition or in the particular condition will have said our specifications will take precedence over some standards or take precedence over some things because we know what we want to do. Maybe QCS says that for the road, you should make it 10 mm thick, but we want something better. We want 15 mm. So when you are measuring, you won't go to QCS that says 10 mm. You go to that specification which has been addressed in the particular condition. You know, when I mentioned earlier on that, I said when people are preparing tender, when preparing contract documents, they adopt or they make a contract bespoke by changing some things. So one of those things that they change is that they give power to some documents. I also mentioned this to some extent in my presentation when I said even the quantifying document that you have in the first instance, the first limitation it has is that it is given power by a contract document or by law, right? So when the contract document has now said that, this particular document takes priority over what you have as QCS or what you have as specification, then you have to rely on that document. So for example, if client requirement says, I want my road to be, this particular part of my road to be 10 mm thick, but QCS is saying that it should be 5 mm, that client requirement takes priority or take over what you have in QCS. So the contractor or the claim or the quantification or the assessment will have to be aligned or will have to conform with the client requirement. I hope I'm able to respond appropriately to your question.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for your wonderful presentation. And Mr. Yahya's question evokes some important considerations. Let me say, for a start, that the two documents that are mentioned are useful in pricing, not in quantification per se. In quantification, we refer to the generally we refer to the standard method of measurement that is described. So that is for quantification. But for pricing, we need these other documents, all the other documents combined. As the chairman has said, the president as he has advised, we will also consider the priority of documents. And these ambiguities, they are very important. The best practice is as soon as the contractor or during the tender, when it's still a tender, I'm sorry, please. As soon as it becomes aware of any ambiguity, the best practice is to bring it to the fore and raise a query over it. So our failure to do that leads to a lot of issues later along the line. So I would say, because there are latent ambiguities and there are patent ambiguities. For the latent ambiguities, it may be lucky and get away with it under constructive variations or constructive changes. But for the patent ones, I may not be that lucky. The contractor. So it is the best practice that as soon as the tenderer becomes aware of any ambiguity, he tries to clarify it during tender, so that conflicts during post-contract will be reduced. So these are my contributions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We have any other contribution questions?
We'll appreciate everyone's contribution, please. Any question? Any question, please? Well,
somebody has opened their hand. There's
Asad. Okay.
Asad, please go ahead.
Asad, please go ahead.
Hello, Asad, you can ask your question. We can't hear you. Yes.
Let him unmute himself.
He has unmute himself. Okay, go ahead, Asad. No, we can't hear you. Okay. I think there might be something wrong with his we can't hear you.
While we wait for Mr. Assad to speak in, there was a particular issue that happened to me in one of my previously completed projects. It had to do with IT tech related project. Now, everything on that project was just lumped together. Everything, especially when it comes to the materials to provide. Somewhere along the line, there was a stoppage in the works because the work was a specialist work anyway. So there was a stoppage in the work by the end user, not the engaging client, but the end user, who also had contributory power in as part of it, was a strong stakeholder. What then happened was we had a situation where we couldn't identify what extent of the work had been done. Now, this particular topic sheds a lot of lights on these things, especially for some of us that may be trying to go out of construction, as it were, the standard, the basic construction. Some people may be trying to go into even oil and gas. You find all of these sort of challenges in oil and gas sector. Now, Mr. Dejonwo, you said something about the under best practices. We're talking avoidance. Can you please try and just give a synopsis cover again of that avoidance? Because I didn't understand what you meant by avoidance. So
okay, all right. Before I do that, if you are trying to connect and you can type your questions. Mr. Adiajayi, can you unmute yourself and ask your question before I'll come back to that so that we don't.
Oh yes. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, everybody. This was very insightful, very knowledgeable. Thank you so much. My question is this, please. Regarding claims, what's your advice regarding risk allocation and unforeseen grant condition? Because most of the road works claims comes from this. What do you advise on this generally?
Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I can address that. Okay, I'll address it from two perspectives. In most ITT ground conditions, they have most ITT and most standard forms of contract, including FIDIC, Red Book, and all of that, have sort of put the responsibility of ground condition on the contractor, on the tenderer. But more than that, I'm trying to remember now, I can't remember the particular case. In law in itself, it has been established, there's a legal precedent. I think it's Hort versus something. There's a legal precedent, especially within common law jurisdiction, that ground conditions are the responsibility of the tenderer and the contractor. And more importantly, it even went to the extent saying that ground conditions are the responsibility of the contractor, and the contractor cannot rely on the information of ground conditions provided by the employer and its representatives. What that precedent established, and it was established in a senior court, in an appeal court, right, is that when a contractor goes into, a contract with an employer, and the engineer says that this is what you have as ground condition, the contractor cannot say, because the engineer says that there is water at 1 meter or at -1, but when I got to site, I saw water at -3, right? Because of that, I am using the information from the engineer as the basis of my claim that the engineer misled me. The court has held that the contractor is responsible for his own information. And even in that particular case, which is a strong precedent that is used most time now, it says that whether the information from the client representative or the client, as the case may be, is warranted or unwarranted, the contractor is still responsible for his own decision. And in that particular case, what made it even stronger was that it was a design and build. So, and that particular case, the contractor was saying that, oh, you, the employer, you told me that this particular situation was under the ground, but when I got there, it was something else that I met. So because of that, I'm making a claim, and that escalated all the way to litigation. And the court decided that ground condition is the responsibility of the contractor. And if you see most of the contract these days, it is written there that ground condition and the employer and the contractor will not be able to claim additional payment or time for ground condition, because all of this information, all of these conditions are deemed to have been seen by the contractor. So that is my take on that. We have a couple of hands raised. Let me open it. There was, okay, person has left. Asad, can you, if you can talk now, you can talk, but if you can type your question. Asad, if you can talk, can you try? All right. There was somebody that raised before. I think one of who raised his hand before, but he's no longer here. Okay, so we'll go to Mr. Nuruddin Badru. You can please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. While you were giving that wonderful answer, a question came to my mind. Maybe a few questions. The first question that came to mind is it possible that the determination of the courts in this case was as a result of the contractor bearing the responsibility of design? Because I imagine a situation where the contractor will not bear the responsibility of design. He will not have to do the what's it called? What do you call that? Geotechnical investigation. You wouldn't have to do that. So that's my first question. Can I think of the second question?
Okay. Well, before you think of the second question, let me respond and let us talk to Asad, because he has been raising his hand and he was having challenges, technical difficulty answering. So let us just respond to Asad quickly, please. Thank you. Asad's question is, during tendering, if the particular condition referring to POMI, that is Principle of Measurement International, another document referring to another method of measurement, then which one to follow, which is highly in higher hierarchy? Thank you very much. I try to mention this. As a matter of fact, I have experienced this particular situation in the contract. So this is what I'm saying. In not to pricing in particular condition, in supplemental condition, the contract will mention that this is the particular method of measurement that the contract is using. But we have seen situations where the drafters or the construction lawyers or those that are involved in this contracting, have gone to tamper with the narrative, with the description of this. They won't say this is the particular SMM. They can list 3 or 4 or 5 and say the bills of quantities have been prepared in conformity with POMI, in conformity with SMM, is in conformity with so and so. But at the end of the day, we will see a particular work item, their discrepancy in how it has been measured and described in the bills of quantities, which can be the basis of a claim. Then the question now comes to which one of these should we use to interpret this measurement in the bills of quantities? The simple answer to that, though it appears to be unfair on the side of the contractor, is that there is also another clause in the supplemental condition and in most of these general conditions of contract that says that when there are discrepancies like that, you go to hierarchy. But more than the fact that you go to hierarchy, it says that you will use the most stringent clause or the most stringent interpretation to address the issue. So what do we do? When you look at what POMI says, what you look at what SMM says, when you look at what CSMM says about that particular work item, you will look at the one that gives the employer and the project the best option out of it, which will probably be the most stringent of all of this. I hope that answered the question. It might not be in terms of hierarchy because POMI and all of this will probably appear in the same section of the contract document. But that same contract document has said that when there are issues of this kind of discrepancy, you will interpret, you will align your application with the most stringent interpretation in the contract document. So you say, if, for example, now the quantity is in cubic meter, but POMI says you measure it in square meter, and this one says you measure it in linear meter, right? You now look at the quantity, you look at the specification, you now say, okay, which one best protects the project? Which would be the most stringent one? You now say, yes, this work is deemed to have been measured by POMI and it should be in cubic meter. That can be the kind of interpretation that you can adopt. That is one. Then I'll go back to the contribution or the question raised by Nuruddin Badru. What he said is that, could it be that in the particular case that I described, that it was because the design responsibility was on the contractor? Yes, I agree with you that it is probably because the design responsibility was upon the contractor that the court held that the contractor is liable for the information upon which it based its design at the time, whether warranted or unwarranted. It cannot rely on the information provided by the employer. Whether the court will hold a different ground, saying that if it was document prepared by the, if it was traditional, for example, document design prepared by the employer and its representative at the contractor only price, would it have meant that the contractor will be liable or not? But the question to that and the response to that will be that the ITT has also mentioned that whether the contractor prepared the document or not, whether it is designed and built or not, the contractor is responsible for the geotechnical and even the ground condition to a very, very, very large extent, at least as what a reasonable contractor in the eyes of the law should be able to know when that kind of things will happen in future. What I mean by that is that a reasonable contractor should at least carry out some investigation when pricing, should, in the real sense of it. But I'm not saying that they do most of the time. As a matter of fact, in some instances, it's practically impossible for a contractor to do efficient investigation before going into the contract. So that is my response on that. Yes, we have Asa saying that, okay, thank you, you're welcome for the answer. Can we get presentation? Yes, you will get the presentation slides and recording. Thank you very much. So go ahead, Mr. Nuruddin. You can have your response.
Thank you very much. I mean, further response to Arsad, I would say that I do not expect that the standard method of measurement, the standard method of measurement will be mentioned in the conditions of contract. It's supposed to be part of the pricing document. It's mentioned either in the preamble to what's it called, pricing preamble, or instruction to tenderers, or even in the bill of quantities itself. So I don't expect that it will be found in any other document. So it's strange.
Mr. Nuruddin, yes, we have had experiences. As a matter of fact, I have that in my project at the moment. In the supplemental condition and in the what's it called? In the particular condition, the measures of measurement are mentioned there. So it can be part of the contract document. It happens.
So that's quite interesting.
Yes, it happens. It happens. All right. Any other response? Okay. Without okay, we have Asad. Asad have raised Mustafa. Yeah, Mr. Mustafa, please go ahead.
Well, hi everyone. Thank you very much, Paula, for the interesting topic, and it was well presented and very informative. I just have a small contribution in avoiding some discrepancies or problems in the documentation. It's not only to mention the method of measurement that is the bill of quantities as was based on. There's another tool which we can supplement to this is the preambles. And where we write down, usually we write down any deviations from the standard method of measurement. And we all know that standards of measurements are not comprehensive. They don't cover everything. I can give a very, very small example of this. I used to use the POMI for a very long time, and the POMI says that when you measure slabs, you measure the beams separate, and then you measure the slabs separate. And sometimes you have a combination of slabs. And when you have a Hordy slab and you have a solid slab and they are joined together, and it doesn't state where is the limit or the demarcation between the two slabs. It's very convenient for the people who prepare the bills of quantities to write down how the quantities have been measured. I can give another example that I faced many times, that when we say we are measuring tiles to walls in the bathrooms, for example, and if we don't say what is the limit of the tiles that we are taking above the full ceiling, maybe the contractor would think that we tiled all the way up to the structural ceiling or the structural soffit, whereby maybe the intent is just to tile maybe 10 centimeters or 20 centimeters above the full ceiling level. These kinds of clarifications save a lot of hassles during the execution of the work.
Exactly. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Mustafa. Thank you very much. Because that contribution as concerning preambles and all of that is very, very critical. Even in using quantification for managing claims, you must refer to preambles. We have to go back to preambles along with other documents, and those interpretations will be there. And even in in using this, we also rely on what will have happened in tender clarifications and tender, tender amendments and things like that. So all of that come together in helping us in management of claims. So thank you very much. That's a significant contribution, that we should not forget preambles to the trade that describe what was measured, how it was measured, and what is included in each of the price. When you see notes on pricing and preambles to trade, they will tell you that the rate for concrete includes this, and this, and it excludes these specific things. And at times, you might find some discrepancies between what you have in preambles to trade and what you have in SMM. In that particular case, preambles to trade will be what you will follow, because that has guided what you have in your, in your bills of quantities and in the contract. So thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, can we put our hands together for Mr. Dejonwo if we can? Thank you for a good presentation, Mr. Chairman. We appreciate your input today. Because of time, we are trying to wrap it up at this junction. We thank you, everyone that attended. Like we said, we will make the presentation available and will ensure that this particular series takes a continuum so that there is no breakage in the knowledge gained. We thank you for everyone. Again, please, perhaps you think anyone should have been on this forum today that wasn't there, please reach out to them after this and invite them for our subsequent presentation. Everyone, we thank you, and we pray again for our brethren that are having the Ramadan season. We ask for God's strength and God's mercy on all of us. We also pray for all of us, all those that are going through the Good Friday, the Easter period. We pray that God Almighty will continue to keep all of us and preserve all of us. Thank you again, Mr. Dejonwo. I think the meeting has come to an end. We'll make the presentation slides available subsequently. Thank you, everyone, and have a good evening.
Thank you all. Thank you all for taking time to join us. Thank you, and hope to see you the next time we come online. Thank you very much.